Welcome back to our Reddit cheating stories. Subscribe and let's dive in. Tonight was the night. The blind date. The he's perfect for you, I swear date. The date that was either going to launch me into a rom-com montage or solidify my status as a woman destined to die alone, surrounded by cats, and half-finished knitting projects. My best friend, Chloe, was the mastermind behind this whole operation. Chloe, bless her overly enthusiastic, constantly scheming heart, was convinced I was wasting my life on spreadsheets and avoiding anything resembling human connection. "You need to get out there, Amelia," she declared, brandishing a bottle of wine like a weapon of persuasion. "You're smart, funny, beautiful. Well, you could be beautiful if you put down the elastic waistband and embraced a decent blow-dryer." Charming. Her candidate for Mr. Right was named Leo. Leo, the architect. Leo, the dog lover. Leo, the volunteer at the local soup kitchen. He sounded like he'd been manufactured in a perfect boyfriend simulator. Suspiciously perfect. I, on the other hand, was Amelia. Amelia, the accountant. Amelia, the connoisseur of comfortable sweatpants. Amelia, whose greatest accomplishment this week was successfully balancing my checkbook. I was practical, logical, and profoundly unromantic. "He likes board games." Chloe had shrieked, as if that sealed the deal. Board games. Wonderful. I envisioned an evening spent locked in mortal combat over Monopoly, while he secretly judged my aggressive property acquisitions. The lava cake incident was only the latest in a string of predate calamities. First, there was the wardrobe crisis. After 3 hours of tearing through my closet, I had concluded that my wardrobe consisted mainly of sensible sweaters and business casual attire. Nothing screamed, "I'm fun and available," unless you were into accountants with a penchant for beige. Then, there was the shaving incident. Let's just say my razor and I had a disagreement, resulting in a strategically placed band-aid on my left ankle. Sexy, right? And now the dessert was a charcoal briquette. I threw open the window, desperately trying to air out the apartment. The fire alarm remained stubbornly silent, probably lulled into complacency by my frequent cooking mishaps. My phone buzzed. It was Chloe. "Chloe, Operation Blind Date is a go. You ready to knock his socks off?" I stared at the phone, feeling a surge of something akin to panic-induced nausea. Me, my lava cake just committed suicide. Chloe, LOL. Don't worry about dessert. Just be yourself. But maybe put on some lipstick. Right. Be myself. The problem was, I wasn't entirely sure who myself was anymore. Was it the sensible, organized, spreadsheet-loving Amelia? Or was there some hidden, adventurous, spontaneous Amelia lurking beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to emerge? I glanced at the clock. An hour until liftoff. Time to salvage what I could. Chapter 2, The Outfit of Last Resort. The lipstick Chloe had insisted on felt like a foreign object on my face. It was a shade of crimson that screamed, "I'm trying too hard," which, let's be honest, I was. After the wardrobe debacle, I'd settled on a simple black dress. It was safe, flattering, and wouldn't clash with any potential board game pieces. I paired it with a pair of black heels that I hadn't worn in approximately 3 years. My feet were already protesting. As I surveyed myself in the mirror, I couldn't shake the feeling that I looked like I was going to a funeral. A slightly overdressed funeral. I took a deep breath and tried to channel my inner Chloe. "Confidence, Amelia. You got this." The doorbell rang. My heart leaped into my throat and started tap dancing. This was it. Moment of truth. I smoothed down my dress, took another deep breath, and opened the door. Standing on my doorstep was, not Leo. Instead, there was a man who looked like he'd wandered off the set of a lumberjack convention. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and had a beard that could house a family of squirrels. He was wearing a flannel shirt, jeans, and work boots that looked like they'd seen better days. He also had a bouquet of wildflowers clutched in his hand. My brain short-circuited. Hi. I stammered, my carefully rehearsed greeting dissolving into a puddle of awkwardness. He smiled, and the effect was surprisingly charming. Hi. I'm not Leo. I gathered that, I said, feeling my anxiety levels spike. This had to be a prank. Chloe had definitely set me up. Leo had a slight emergency, he explained, his eyes twinkling. Let's just say a rogue squirrel and a particularly prized bonsai tree were involved. He sends his deepest apologies, and he asked me to take his place. I stared at him, speechless. A rogue squirrel. A bonsai tree. This was getting weirder by the second. He felt terrible about canceling, he continued, and he knew you were really looking forward to this. So he called me. I'm his cousin, Finn. Finn. Even his name sounded like he belonged in a storybook. So, you're stepping in? I asked, still trying to process the situation. If that's okay with you, he said, his gaze sincere. I know it's not ideal, but I figured it was better than you spending the evening alone. He looked so genuinely hopeful that I couldn't bring myself to say no. Besides, what did I have to lose? The evening was already a disaster of epic proportions. Okay, I said, surprising myself. Okay, Finn. Come on in. He moved with a quiet confidence that was strangely comforting. He placed the wildflowers on the coffee table, a splash of vibrant color against the backdrop of my beige existence. So I said, trying to regain some semblance of composure, what exactly did Leo tell you about me? Finn chuckled. Just that you're an accountant. And that you like board games. My face flushed. Great. I was being reduced to a stereotype. I tolerate board games, I corrected, under extreme duress. Finn raised an eyebrow. Ah. So the rumor of your ruthless monopoly tactics was greatly exaggerated. I glared at him playfully. I play to win. He grinned. I like that. There was a comfortable silence, broken only by the sound of my stomach growling. The stress-induced hunger was kicking in. So what do you want to do? I asked. I had planned on making a fancy dinner, but the dessert is currently residing in a landfill. Finn looked around my apartment, taking in the slightly chaotic atmosphere. How about pizza? Pizza. It was perfect. Unpretentious, comforting, and required absolutely no cooking skills. Pizza sounds amazing, I said, relief flooding through me. We ordered a large pepperoni pizza, and as we waited for it to arrive, we started talking. And talking. And talking. I learned that Finn was a carpenter. He built things, houses, furniture, dreams made of wood and nails. He loved the feel of the wood in his hands, the satisfaction of creating something tangible. He talked about his projects with a passion that was infectious. I, in turn, told him about my life. About the comfort I found in numbers, the satisfaction of balancing a budget, the quiet order of the financial world. I even confessed my secret desire to one day open my own bakery. He listened intently, his eyes never leaving mine. He didn't judge my love of spreadsheets or my aversion to spontaneous activities. He just listened. As we devoured the pizza, I found myself relaxing, actually enjoying myself. Finn was easy to talk to. He was funny, intelligent, and genuinely interested in what I had to say. He didn't try to impress me with fancy stories or force conversation. He was just himself. And somehow, in his presence, I found myself being myself too. The real Amelia, the one who wasn't afraid to laugh, to be a little silly, to admit that she had absolutely no idea what she was doing half the time. The wildflowers Finn had brought filled the air with a sweet, earthy fragrance. So Finn said, leaning back against the sofa, I hear you're a fan of board games. I groaned. Don't remind me. Leo made me sound like a board game enthusiast. I'm more of a Netflix and chill kind of girl. Finn grinned. In that case, he reached for my phone. What kind of music do you like? Before I could answer, he'd connected my phone to the Bluetooth speaker and was scrolling through my music library. He stopped on a playlist filled with classic rock anthems. Queen, he asked, raising an eyebrow. Don't judge, I said defensively. Everyone needs a little Freddie Mercury in their life. Finn laughed and pressed play. Bohemian Rhapsody filled the apartment. And then, something unexpected happened. Finn stood up, held out his hand and said, "Care to dance?" I hesitated. I hadn't danced in years. The thought of stumbling around my living room in heels, with a lumberjack carpenter as my partner, was mortifying. But there was something in his eyes, a warmth and an invitation, that I couldn't resist. I took his hand. We started slow, awkward at first. But as the music swelled, we found our rhythm. Finn wasn't a professional dancer, but he was surprisingly graceful. He spun me around, dipped me low, and made me laugh. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. I wasn't an accountant, or a spreadsheet lover, or a woman defined by her anxieties. I was just Amelia, dancing in her living room with a man she'd met only a few hours ago. As the song ended, we were both breathless and laughing. That was amazing, I said, my cheeks flushed. Finn smiled. I told you I wasn't Leo. We talked, we laughed, we danced, we even attempted to play a board game, Settlers of Catan, which Finn surprisingly dominated. It was getting late, and I knew Finn had to leave. A part of me didn't want him to go. As we stood on my doorstep, saying goodbye, an awkward silence descended. I had a really great time tonight, Amelia, Finn said, his voice soft. Me too, I replied, feeling a flutter of something I couldn't quite define. He hesitated, then reached out and gently brushed a strand of hair from my face. I know this is probably crazy, but I feel like I've known you forever. My heart skipped a beat. I feel the same way, I confessed, my voice barely a whisper. He smiled, a warm, genuine smile that reached his eyes. Can I see you again? I'd like that very much, I said, my own smile mirroring his. He leaned in, and for a moment, I thought he was going to kiss me. But then he pulled back, a flicker of hesitation in his eyes. I should probably go, he said, his voice slightly strained. I have an early start tomorrow. I nodded, trying to hide my disappointment. He turned to leave, then stopped. Oh, one more thing. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, intricately carved wooden squirrel. Leo wanted you to have this, he said, handing it to me. As a token of his squirrel-related apologies. I burst out laughing. The wooden squirrel was ridiculous, adorable, and the perfect ending to a perfectly absurd evening. Tell Leo thank you, I managed to say between laughs. Finn smiled. I will. Good night, Amelia. Good night, Finn. I watched him walk away, the lumberjack carpenter disappearing into the night. I clutched the wooden squirrel in my hand, feeling a warmth spread through me. As I closed the door, I couldn't help but smile. A blind date orchestrated by a rogue squirrel, a bonsai tree, and a well-meaning best friend had somehow led me to something special. After and the explanation. I woke up the next morning with a smile plastered on my face. The previous night felt like a dream, a bizarre, wonderful dream involving pizza, dancing, and a lumberjack carpenter with a heart of gold. I reached for my phone, half expecting to find a text from Chloe, gloating about her matchmaking prowess. But there was nothing. I got out of bed and went to the kitchen, where the remnants of our pizza feast still lingered. The wildflowers Finn had brought were in full bloom, filling the room with their sweet fragrance. I picked up the wooden squirrel and smiled. As I was making coffee, my phone rang. It was Chloe. So, she shrieked before I could even say hello. Tell me everything. How was Leo? Was he as perfect as I said he was? Did you guys hit it off? Are you planning your wedding yet? I took a deep breath. Chloe, I said, Leo didn't make it. There was a moment of stunned silence. What? What do you mean he didn't make it? Did he? Is he okay? He's fine, I assured her. He had a squirrel-related emergency. His cousin, Finn, came instead. Finn? Chloe's voice was laced with suspicion. Who's Finn? He's Leo's cousin, I explained. He's a carpenter. And he was amazing. I proceeded to tell Chloe everything about the pizza, the dancing, the unexpected connection I'd felt with Finn. By the time I was finished, Chloe was practically squealing with excitement. I knew it, she exclaimed. I knew you two were meant to be. See, Amelia. I told you to trust me. I rolled my eyes. Chloe, you haven't even met Finn. Details, she said dismissively. The important thing is that you found your Mr. Right. I wasn't ready to go that far. But I couldn't deny that something special had happened. So Chloe continued, when are you seeing him again? I don't know, I admitted. He said he'd call. Well, don't just sit around waiting. Chloe said. Text him. Call him. Show him you're interested. I hesitated. I wasn't usually one for aggressive pursuit. But maybe Chloe was right. Maybe I needed to take a chance. But before I could even formulate a plan, my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. Unknown, morning, Amelia. Hope you slept well. I was wondering if you're free for coffee later. Finn. My heart leaped. Me, I'd love that. What time? Within minutes, we'd made plans to meet at a local coffee shop that afternoon. I spent the rest of the morning pacing my apartment, trying to decide what to wear, what to say, and how to avoid sounding like a complete idiot. Date and the truth about Leo. The coffee shop was bustling with activity. I spotted Finn sitting at a table near the window, nursing a cup of coffee. He looked even more handsome in the daylight. As I approached, he stood up and smiled. Amelia. You look beautiful. I blushed. You don't look so bad yourself, Mr. Carpenter. We sat down and ordered our coffees. The conversation flowed easily, picking up right where we'd left off the night before. We talked about our families, our dreams, our fears. I learned that Finn was passionate about sustainable building practices, and that he dreamed of one day building his own eco-friendly community. He, in turn, learned about my love of spreadsheets, my secret desire to write a novel, and my crippling fear of public speaking. As we talked, I couldn't help but wonder about Leo. Why had he really cancelled? And why had he sent Finn in his place? Finally, I couldn't contain my curiosity any longer. So I said, about Leo, what exactly happened with the squirrel and the bonsai tree? Finn hesitated, a sheepish look on his face. Well, he said, that's where things get a little complicated. He took a deep breath. The truth is, there was no squirrel. And no bonsai tree. My eyebrows shot up. What? Leo didn't want to go on the date, Finn confessed. He's not really looking for a relationship right now. He's kind of going through a spiritual awakening. I stared at him, stunned. So, the whole thing was a lie. Not exactly, Finn said quickly. Leo knew that Chloe was trying to set you up, and he didn't want to hurt her feelings. So he agreed to the date, knowing full well he'd bail at the last minute. He asked me to step in because he knew I was looking for someone. He looked at me with such sincerity that I couldn't stay mad. So let me get this straight, I said, trying to process everything. Leo used me as a pawn in his spiritual journey, and you used me as a dating opportunity. Finn winced. It sounds worse when you put it that way. But yes, essentially. I know it was wrong, and I'm truly sorry if I hurt you. I looked into his eyes. They were filled with remorse, but also with something else, a genuine connection that I couldn't deny. I was pretty upset when I found out, because he knew that I was interested in meeting you, but he pushed me aside and told me that you aren't my type, and I don't listen, Finn added. I sighed. It's okay, Finn. I'm not mad. Actually, I'm kind of grateful. He looked confused. Grateful? But we lied to you. Yeah, but if you hadn't lied, I wouldn't have met you, I said, a smile playing on my lips. And I wouldn't have had the most unexpectedly wonderful night of my life. Finn's face lit up. So you're not mad? Not even a little bit, I said. In fact, I think I owe Leo a thank you note. For the squirrel, the bonsai tree, and the accidental matchmaking. Finn laughed. I'll be sure to pass that along. We finished our coffees, the conversation flowing as easily as before. The revelation about Leo had only served to strengthen the connection between us. We had both been thrust into this situation unintentionally, but we were both willing to embrace the unexpected. Chapter 8, The Second Date and the Lumberjack Charm. Our second date was even better than the first. Finn took me to a local farmer's market, where we sampled artisanal cheeses, fresh baked bread, and locally grown fruits. He knew all the vendors by name, and seemed genuinely interested in their stories. I watched him interact with people, his easy smile and genuine warmth drawing them in. He wasn't just a carpenter, he was a connector, a community builder. After the farmer's market, we went for a hike in the nearby woods. Finn pointed out different types of trees, explaining their unique characteristics and uses. He seemed to have an encyclopedic knowledge of all things nature-related. As we walked, I couldn't help but notice the way people reacted to Finn. Women smiled at him, men nodded in respect, and children ran up to him, drawn to his gentle demeanor. He had a kind of lumberjack charm that was irresistible. He even helped an old lady carry groceries to her car, and he told me that he always do it, even without knowing the person. I found myself falling for him, and falling hard. As we reached the top of the trail, we stopped to admire the view. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the landscape. This is beautiful, I said, breathlessly. Finn turned to me, his eyes filled with emotion. Not as beautiful as you. I blushed, my heart pounding in my chest. He reached out and gently took my hand. Amelia, he said, his voice soft, I know this is only our second date, but I feel something really special with you. Something I've never felt before. I looked into his eyes, and I saw the same thing reflected back at me. I feel it too, Finn, I whispered. He leaned in, and this time, he didn't hesitate. His lips met mine in a kiss that was both tender and passionate. It was a kiss that sealed something between us, a promise of something more. Chapter 9. Meeting the family and the squirrel. Things moved quickly after that. We started spending every spare moment together. I learned to appreciate the beauty of woodworking, and he learned to tolerate my love of spreadsheets, though he still couldn't understand why anyone would find joy in balancing a checkbook. He introduced me to his family, a boisterous, loving bunch who welcomed me with open arms. They teased Finn relentlessly about his squirrel-induced matchmaking, but they were all genuinely happy for us. I even met Leo, who was exactly as I'd imagined him, a slightly eccentric, deeply spiritual man who apologized profusely for the dating debacle. He insisted on giving me a crystal to balance my chakras, and declared that Finn and I were destined to be together. I brought Finn to meet my parents, which was a much more nerve-wracking experience. My parents were traditional, to say the least. They had always envisioned me marrying a successful accountant, or a lawyer, someone with a stable job and a predictable life. Finn, with his flannel shirts, his woodworking tools, and his unconventional lifestyle, was definitely not what they had in mind. The dinner was awkward, to say the least. My parents peppered Finn with questions about his income, his job security, and his long-term goals. Finn answered them politely, but I could see the strain in his eyes. After dinner, my mother cornered me in the kitchen. Amelia, she said, her voice disapproving, are you sure about this man? He seems nice, but he's not exactly your type. Mom, I said, exasperated, what is my type? Someone who's boring and predictable. Finn makes me happy. He challenges me. He makes me feel alive. Isn't that what you want for me? My mother sighed. Of course, dear. I just want you to be happy. But you need to be realistic. This is your life we're talking about. I knew my mother meant well, but her words stung. Was I being unrealistic? Was I letting my emotions cloud my judgment? Was I making a mistake? I didn't know the answer. But I knew that I couldn't imagine my life without Finn. And I was willing to take a chance on love, even if it meant defying my parents' expectations. Chapter 10, The Storm and the Revelation. A few months into our relationship, Finn invited me to spend a weekend with him at his cabin in the mountains. It was a rustic, cozy retreat that he'd built himself, using reclaimed wood and sustainable materials. I loved the cabin immediately. It was filled with Finn's handcrafted furniture, quirky artwork, and a warmth that radiated from every corner. We spent the day hiking, fishing, and cooking a delicious meal over an open fire. As we sat by the fire, sipping wine and watching the stars, I felt a sense of peace and contentment that I'd never experienced before. But then, a storm rolled in. The wind howled, the rain lashed against the windows, and the thunder shook the cabin to its foundations. The power went out, plunging us into darkness. I was terrified. I'd always been afraid of storms, and being stuck in a remote cabin in the middle of nowhere was my worst nightmare. Finn held me close, trying to reassure me. But I could feel him start to worry, too. The radio says there's a flash flood warning. We have to evacuate now. I huddled in bed and didn't want to listen to him. It's okay, Amelia, he said, his voice calm and soothing. We'll be fine. I'll protect you. He lit some candles and started a fire in the fireplace. He told me stories, sang me songs, and made me laugh. He didn't try to minimize my fears, he just held me close and let me know that I wasn't alone. As the storm raged outside, I realized something profound. Finn wasn't just a carpenter, he was a builder of safe havens. He wasn't just a lover, he was a protector. He wasn't just a boyfriend. He was my rock. And then, the roof started to crack, and he told me that we will be moving outside, and I didn't want to, but he grabbed my hand and made me run with him. The situation worsened as we ran outside, and we have to hold into a wood so we won't be dragged by flood, and he held me so tight. We will get out of this, I promise, he shouted, while trying to hold me with all his might. That night, as we huddled together in his arms, listening to the storm rage outside, I knew that I was in love with him. Not just infatuated, not just attracted, but truly, deeply, irrevocably in love. And yes, I would spend my entire life with him. Chapter 11, The Proposal and the Perfect Imperfection. A year passed. A year filled with laughter, adventure, and a love that grew stronger with each passing day. I learned to embrace the unexpected, to take risks, and to live in the moment. Finn taught me to appreciate the beauty of imperfection, to find joy in the simple things, and to believe in the power of love. We explored new hobbies together, like baking. He helped me with my bakery dream, and enrolled me into a bakery school, with the intention of making my dream come true. One evening, as we were sitting on the porch swing of his cabin, watching the sunset, Finn took my hand. Amelia, he said, his voice trembling slightly. Thanks for watching our story. Subscribe, like and share your thoughts.